is, oh no, I've done this again. I can't believe, oh, there it is. I didn't do it. Okay. So I'm going to have some amendments to the agenda to add a few things. And
You are now recording.
okay, we haven't called the meeting to order yet, Dan. So really no need to start recording until I
It's
call the meeting to order.
6:36. You should start it.
Yeah, we should
Is it
start.
just the four of us?
No, there's 10 people.
Oh, see, I'm not seeing them on my screen. I am not seeing them. Yeah, this is like the board meeting, Dan. I'm not seeing them.
I don't know what your problem is because it must be your format on your Zoom.
Well, I didn't change it from when it used to work. So John and Steve, you're the only two I can see. So can you be my eyes when people raise their hand to speak? Because I can't see anybody but you two. Can you see everybody?
We can, so we'll
I could see John.
I'll keep an eye. I can I can see everybody who's on it right now, and as more people join, we'll have to toggle and see what's there, but I can see.
Yeah, I'm only seeing me and you and Steve.
Yep, so
And
let's keep going.
Welcome everyone. I can't see most of you, but hopefully your formatting is good so you can see all the attendees. So welcome to our March 5th, 2026 Turnagain Community Council meeting. I'm Kathy Gleason, serving as president this year. So at this point, I will call the meeting to order at 6:37 p.m. And I do have some, and then, well, I'll go ahead and introduce what board members I know are here. John Isaacs, he's our land use co-chair and board member at large. And Karen, I hope you're here. I can't see you. Karen Plettenkoff is vice president.
Yep.
I don't know if Chris is attending, but Chris Havich is our secretary. Sandy is not able to attend, our treasurer, Sandy Rabinowitz. And our other at-large board member, Jonathan Galen, is also not being able to attend today or this evening. So if I could have a motion to approve the agenda, and just heads up, I do have a few amendments.
So moved.
Hi, Kathy. I'll move to approve.
I've got John as moving, so can you be my second here?
Yes, happy to.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and clump my amendments together because they're not real serious. They're just kind of informational. But got contacted by Senator Matt Clayman's office that his schedule is actually going to be catching a plane to Anchorage, not too far from now. So they asked if he could present early in the meeting. So as soon as we get through our approval of agenda minutes and announcements, I'll go ahead and give the floor to Senator Matt Clayman. So that would be one amended item. And then adding under board report, Minnesota Drive, I and L Street update, as well as just informational TCC boundaries map. The municipality has provided the new updated boundaries map. So if I could make that as a motion to include those in the agenda, can I have a second, please?
Second.
Okay, was that John again?
Yep, Dan was right behind me.
Okay. Is there any objection to amendments to the agenda? Okay.
Just
none,
to let you know, Anna Brawley and Matt Clayman have joined the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Anna. Welcome, Matt. So Matt, I just announced that once we get through approval of our minutes and have our announcements, then I'll go ahead and allow you to speak since you've got a plane to catch. So the next item, if I can have a motion to approve the February 5th, 2026 TCC minutes by our secretary, Chris Habich. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, John. Could I have a second, please?
A second, Steve.
Thanks, Steve. Is there any objection to approval of the minutes as presented? So unless I'm told that somebody has a hand up, then they are approved. No objection, they are approved. With the caveat, we always go through them, and if there's anything small, insignificant that we need to amend, then that's something that we might do before we submit them. Okay. Next on the agenda is announcements. And I've got a few of them, and then I'll see if anybody else has any. So March 8th, coming up March 8th, is the last day to register to vote for the municipal April 7th, 2026 election. So if you haven't registered yet and they're eligible to, I encourage you to do so. There's an Anchorage Town Hall meeting on Saturday, March 14th from Anchorage Legislative Town Hall meeting, our state people, on Saturday, March 14th, 2 to 4 p.m. at the Wendy Williamson Auditorium. So hope people can attend that. Thirdly, Chugach Electric has a town hall meeting on March 24th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at BP Energy Center to learn more about Chugach's recent successes, how they benefit you as a member, and future priorities, and also to ask any questions that you have. And finally, there is no People Mover bus service on Monday, March 30th, observance of Seward's Day. So does anybody else have any announcements that they'd like to share? If not, then
This
we'll
is
move on.
Amanda.
Oh, go ahead, Amanda.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and then just for the good of the order of the meeting, I think we have, especially when we have new people on the meeting, with just maybe a 10-second grace period for us to find our little unmute buttons and things like that, especially for the new folks who are getting it to be able to ask questions. That'd be great. So yeah, and thank you for bringing up the elections info. It is really, there's a lot going on with those election deadlines this year. So it sounds like, yeah, the Friday deadline is for in-office help for that registration and to change your permanent address. But on Sunday is when it officially closes, which is kind of odd to have the Sunday date, but you know, just in case somebody misses Friday, it sounds like you can still do it by Sunday. But then there'll be all sorts of deadlines for the temporary address for all of our snowbirds and college kids that want to still just give a temporary address because, right, it's that paper ballot, and there's even electronic voting this year. So the deadline to be able to apply for electronic voting, there's another deadline for that, and these are all happening boom, boom, boom in March. Maybe could we just get that out as an information text to Turnagain Community Council mailing list? Would that be okay?
We don't do texting, so that's really not
email.
possible.
A text as an email.
Why don't we work together after this is over so I can get the logistics of that settled in?
Yeah, that'd be great because there are lots and lots of details this year regarding
Is
that.
there just a link where people can get that information? Would it be
No, it's all over. So it's in several different places. The elections people are great, but there is, yeah, so it's compiled, but not on the Muni site. So I'm happy to provide that to be able to see that.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Nothing is easy, but it's all towards the goal, I hope, of making it easier for people to vote. Okay, great. So now, Senator Matt Clayman, I can't see you because I'm having limited vision of our attendees, but, oh, there you are. So I can see you now. So you have the floor.
Camera off. Well, happy March. The year is rolling along quite fast from my perspective. We are busy here in Juneau the budget is certainly getting lots of attention and moving forward with that. It's and going forward in the House and Senate. The House passed the supplemental budget, which is money to get filled out this year that includes $70 million for transportation funding to get the federal match. It's got an interesting history because the governor vetoed the $70 million this summer in the original budget, then came back in the fall, late fall, and said, well, I guess we need that, and put it back in the supplemental budget. And now it's in the supplemental budget with different requests from the governor. And the House supported the supplemental budget, but to pay for the budget, they needed a 3/4 vote from the Constitutional Budget Reserve, and they didn't get the 30 votes needed for the Constitutional Budget Reserve draw. So now it's in the Senate. We'll be looking at that on Monday, and assuming the Senate has the votes for the 3/4, that'll go back to the House, and we'll see whether or not the House will fund the supplemental budget. These are all governor's requests. It's a reality that the budget, we just spent more money than we thought we would, and there's, I think, less oil revenue than was projected because of different oil prices than what we estimated when we started. So that's a big topic. Then earlier this week, both two House committees and the same two Senate committees, Judiciary and State Affairs, had hearings about the release of the voter rolls to the federal government, confidential information that's confidential under Alaska law. And it turns out 29 states in the District of Columbia, in response to the same requests, said, no, we're not going to give it to you. So there have been lawsuits filed against those states. And so far, the three courts that have ruled it in those states have all ruled that the federal administration didn't have grounds for their request. So we've had some hearings about the voter data and concerns about our privacy rights that have potentially been violated by the release. So those are two things that have been going on in Juneau, and I'm happy to take any questions and comments.
Hey, thank you, Matt. Does anybody have any questions? Again, I need help to recognize anybody that may raise their hand. So does anybody have any questions for our senator? I'm assuming nobody has any questions. I've got a question, Matt. Do you
Sure.
know what the governor's objective was to share Alaska voter rolls when that legally was, I assume he should have known, may not be allowed? I mean, what was his purpose to do that?
They were, part of what they were saying was their original, the first thing that happened was that they sent the request, and the elections wrote back and said, here's the public voter information, but not the confidential voter information. So there's public information, there's things like names, public street addresses that people haven't asked to be kept private, political party registration, voting history is all part of what you can get from public records at Division of Elections. But we originally said no to the private information, which is mostly driver's license numbers, social security numbers, and dates of birth. And then they followed up, and we don't really know the process that went on between Division of Elections and the Department of Law, but it appears that they had some interest in not wanting to responding and cooperating with the federal government's request. And we haven't had a lot of details about the policy reasons. I did ask at the hearing whether they had specifically analyzed the right to privacy in the Alaska Constitution in their analysis about whether to release the confidential information. And it appears that they did not analyze that in great detail, if at all. So I don't really know the governor's motivation. Certainly the testimony suggested they were aware that there were lawsuits pending in other states, and it sounded like they were willing to go along with the request.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. Anybody have anything for Matt before we let him go catch his plane?
Got to get back to West Anchorage.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Matt.
Yes, I have a question. Oh, sorry, I have a question, Senator Clayman.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Yes, and just about the PFD once again being zeroed out starting this year, which was very unusual. What is your take on that? How are you representing your constituents with that zero PFD?
So the dividend in the House budget process, which they have not completed, they in one of the draft budgets they did put a zero dividend, excuse me, zero dividend in, so that I think it was more so that they could discuss different options about how to put the budget together. I expect there will be a dividend in the budget that comes out of the House. I don't know what that dividend will be, but I do expect there'll be a dividend in the House budget that comes over to the Senate.
And what's your position that you're representing for your constituents on what that dividend amount should be?
I actually am continuing to listen to constituents and looking at that question. You know, I'm asking questions of our constituent survey. We asked questions if we had, the question we asked in the survey was if we had increased revenue. We had 4 options. What would you do with the increased revenue? And the constituent responses are largely putting the dividend as their least important option in terms of additional revenue. We've got public safety demands. We've got demands on public education. You certainly see what's happening in Anchorage. And so there's a lot of pressure we're hearing from a lot of constituents to get a better education funding in this year's budget. And all these things, as the Supreme Court said some years ago, all these expenditures compete with one another in terms of priorities. So I'm listening to the constituents and watching what the finance committees do.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Matt. Thank you, Amanda, for that question. Any other questions? Going once, going twice. If not, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Okay. Have a great evening, and hopefully I'll see some of you back in town this weekend.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. So now we will move on to New and Turnagain, which is just a brief hello and welcome to anybody who has not attended a Turnagain Community Council meeting, either in person or via Zoom. And so just if there's anybody that falls into that category, we only have 5 minutes for this, so we don't have a lot of time, but I'd love to have you introduce yourself and just briefly, if you're a Turnagain resident or a visitor of any kind, and just say welcome. So is there anybody that's raising their hand?
I see no hands
No
up,
new
Kathy,
visitors.
but
Okay. All right, we'll move on then. Okay. Let's see. So under board report, we'll start our board report items, and there's a fair amount. So so just hang in there. So our next board meeting, we're going to tentatively try for Thursday, March 26th to gear up for our April 2nd meeting. And so we're going to be wrapping up that Northern Bank account transition to Sandy Rabenowich, our new treasurer, this year's treasurer. The Anchorage Park Foundation Challenge Grant, for those of you who are interested in that, you probably are already, pretty familiar with for this and have your project probably all in the queue. But let's see, so it is, oh boy, it is on April 10th. In the past, Turnagain Community Council has submitted a request, and that was for phase 1 improvements to Spinard Beach Park, which was about 3 years ago or so. And we do have a phase 2, but we know that there are some Turnagain residents, and also they're working with West and Romig to upgrade trails on the Romig Hill down to Westchester Lagoon. And so they plan on applying for a challenge grant. And so we will wish them well and give them our support. And so Turnagain Community Council as a body itself is not planning to apply for anything this year. But if anybody's interested and you have a project in mind and you'd like to find out more information, contact the Anchorage Park Foundation. They certainly would be the ones to, go ahead and let me get this out. They'd be the ones to go ahead and contact to get all the details. Let's see. So the Heritage Land Bank 2026 and 5-year plan, we had submitted comments that we passed last year. And I testified at the assembly on February 17th that reflected our input. One of the things that we have consistently asked for many years is transfer of land parcels that are owned by the state per a 1986 Municipal Land Entitlement Act. And each year there's some in West Anchorage, some in Turnagain, some in Sand Lake, and I believe maybe even one in Western Spenard, that we feel it's time now to get those transferred because they are being used as parks, recreational, wildlife, open space areas. And so when I testified, Assembly Member Anna Brawley, Vice President Anna Brawley, did ask Heritage Land Bank representative, what's the deal with that? Do you have any information to provide? And that person did not. Said it was a good question and that they would look into that and follow up. And so hopefully we'll get more information on maybe triggering that and getting that taken care of because it's well past time to get that done. We've taken that position for decades. So Beyond the Beige project, let me get that part of my paperwork out. It's a project that is being sponsored by the mayor's office, and Anchorage Park Foundation is taking the lead on that and collaborating with Spenard Community Council and Turnagain Community Council. So we're talking about Fish Creek Park and about a 3-foot high, long, about 100 feet long, kind of retaining wall is there on the south end of the park. And it's been painted and designed over time, but of course, gradually it wears out and starts looking a little shabby. So Park Foundation identified that as a good project to receive some of this Beyond the Beige funding. And so I attended a working group meeting representing Turnagain. So now we identified, kind of a timeline and reach out to artists and so forth. And so hopefully we will get that project done sometime during the spring, summer timeframe as far as all the steps. It's for $5,000, $3,000 for the artist and $2,000 for materials. And the theme is kind of, Fish Creek and the water features. So it'll be interesting to see when designs are released. And so April, May, the Park Foundation will be attending Turnagain and Spenard Community Councils to present artist options, and then we'll go from there. And July, September is when it would be installed or painted. So if anybody's interested, again, contact the Anchorage Park Foundation if you've got some artistic ideas on what could be done at that retaining wall. Let's see. Fish Creek Trail Connection Working Group for a specific part of that project. We were contacted by Solstice Alaska Consulting, Rebecca Marks, and she wanted 3 people representing from Turnagain to just work on this specific part of that big trail project. So it would be to in connection with aesthetic features and interpretive elements of the Fish Creek Trail Connection project. So John and I had mentioned, this was mentioned at our February meeting, and John and I indicated that we were interested, and then talked to Sandy Rabenowich, and he also was interested. So we are the 3 that are going to be looking at that and working on that as a working group. But of course, I'm sure eventually it would come back to the full community council for discussion and review and input.
And so Kathy, the first meeting was this Monday night.
Yes, go ahead, John.
The first meeting was this Monday
I'm
night.
sorry.
Hang on, if I'm on mute. No, I'm there. So the first meeting was this Monday night, so I can give a quick overview of that meeting if you want, or wait till the land use committee.
Oh, why didn't I get notice of that?
We figured you did, yeah, but you were not there, so Sandy and I attended.
Oh, well, I apologize. No, I had no idea that that was taking place. Yeah, go ahead, John, please.
So this is one of 4 working group meetings to deal with sort of the interpretive signage and themes of the Fish Creek Trail. Sandy and I attended. It included reps from Turnagain, Spinard Community Councils, the Railroad, Great Land Trust, Audubon, Friends of Friends of Fish Creek, and Bike Anchorage, and the 2 project leads were there. We learned some things about where the project is and some other stakeholder positions, which I'll talk about under the land use report. The primary feature of this was, from their point of view, was to focus on 2 trail features, aesthetic design for what's going to be a long vertical retaining wall along Resolution Drive at the south end of the trail, and interpretive signage for a pullout overlooking Fish Creek Estuary in about the middle of the trail. And so they were essentially looking for stories and ideas for this. The group attending had some interest in a slightly broader picture than that, kind of interested in what can be done to make the trail fit into the landscape and not create impacts. And I think that's something we're going to have to come back and revisit, particularly as a community council. Some concerns were also brought up about trail alignment, but that was kind of shut down by the project consultant is not appropriate for this meeting. So we still need to have a meeting to discuss it. There'll be a second meeting that's going to be held on the 17th of March at 6 p.m. at CRW. And I think we'll continue to look at what might be some ways to design that trail to, again, fit into the landscape and have the least amount of impact. So that's kind of a quick summary.
Okay, thank you, John. I appreciate that. Yes, I will. Did you say March 17th?
March 17th at 6 p.m.
Okay, let's see here. Okay, let me write it down. Okay, thank you. Okay, next is on the list is Anchorage Wetlands Management Plan, Phase 1. So I saw under a planning you can sign up for receiving municipal planning news. And so I saw within that the Planning and Zoning Commission is going to be looking at an update to the Anchorage Wetlands Management Plan. And let's see, their public hearing is, oh dear, now I don't know. I believe I know I wrote it down. Their public hearing on that is Monday, must be in April because I don't have it written down on my marked calendar. So anyway, it's coming up, but I did talk to Tom Davis from the planning department because I had called him for a different reason. But he said that the reason they're doing this kind of has to do with now how the federal government is dealing with wetlands, and it's kind of complicated, but it's more of a cleanup at this point. But this permits would still, wetland fill permits it would have to go through the Muni no matter what, even though it's the Corps. The Corps at the federal level isn't really doing as much. So we just would have to be cognizant of the changes that are coming up and see if we want to provide any input, because there are certainly important wetlands within our boundaries as well as all of West Anchorage that are all connected. So anyway, oh, excuse me, I've got now the public hearing is April. So comments would be due on April 17th. So it may be something that we want to put on our agenda for next month in terms of a brief presentation overview and then, a resolution or comment letter. So that would be our April 2nd meeting. Okay. And we certainly provided a lot of input on the last update of that plan. Okay, long range transportation plan comments are due March 8th, but John, you looked into that for us, and your thinking was there wasn't anything really specific for
It really isn't.
TCC to weigh in on.
Yeah, it's a statewide transportation plan that really kind of looks at, road, airport, rail, and transit and provides guidance. Even though there are some mention of some roads and things like Northern Lights in Minnesota in it, there's nothing that I think at this point in time warrants our a comment. It is, for anyone who's interested in transportation statistics, it is kind of an interesting read. So that's just one thing to pass on for people who have spare time in their hands, but nothing we need to worry about.
Okay. Okay, thanks, John, for following that one. And so then there is a couple of other things I'll mention. There is the Minnesota Drive and I and L project that we had information on in the past. And they had 4 meetings with a working group, and Kathleen McCoy had originally represented Turnagain at those meetings, but since she no longer is a board member, she passed on continuing participating at that level. So I attended their 4th meeting and presumably the last meeting on March 2nd. And it was interesting. For those who may not know anything about this project, you use Minnesota Drive a lot, either non-motorized or motorized, you're probably going to want to start paying attention to this. TCC originally had submitted comments based on some of the original or initial ideas, like putting roundabouts at Minnesota and Northern Lights and Minnesota at Benson. They have rejected that. So I think, that was good to hear. And they have considered reducing the speed limit in certain sections of Minnesota Drive. And this project kind of goes all the way from International to downtown, INL street corridors downtown. And they said they probably won't reduce speed limits, but it's still not completely off the table, depending on continued discussion. But one of the significant things that they're looking at is right now it's 6 lane. It's 3 north, 3 south to reduce a lane each way. So it would only be 2 lanes going north and 2 lanes going south between Tudor and downtown. And that would allow for that extra space that those 2 lanes would give up to have a large median on the east side between the road motorized lanes and then a non-motorized lane. And, that would be a significant design change from what exists now. So those are the kind of things that they will continue to look at and will come up with something. Not sure quite what the timeline is, but, this will definitely come before the community council. The consultant said maybe she would like to attend our April meeting to present some of this. And so that's something that we can look forward to getting more information as they continue to evaluate how things might change along the Minnesota corridor. So does anybody have any questions? If not, the last item is just FYI. I did talk to Tom Davis at Planning because the Turnagain Community Council boundaries did have a change only with regard to the coastal line. They had been go out to into the water at mean high tide, or mean low tide. But the change that the assembly made, ultimately approved, was the coastal boundary of Turnagain and all the community councils along the coast is now mean high tide, which means none of the mud flats are included in our boundaries anymore. And so they've come up with new council boundary maps and they provided me with a PDF and said if we want to get something done in poster size or anything like that, we'd have to do that on our own. The municipality is not providing that like they did when they did community council boundaries changes the last go around. So with that, that's all I have on. Does anybody, other board members have anything to add under
John
board
has a
report
hand
before
up.
we move on?
John has a hand up.
I'm sorry, Dan, what? Yeah, go ahead.
Has his hand up. John. John has his hand up.
Okay, yeah, go
Then
ahead,
I'll-
John. You're
then
on
I'll
mute.
Thank you. You do have the FCC delegate report under board report, and I don't know if you were going to cover that or not.
Oh, yeah, I just, the other non-FCC delegate. Thank you, John.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah, barring that one, does
Okay.
anybody have any additional? Okay,
One other thing,
yeah,
really,
then the FCC delegate report. We did have a executive session closed in-person only meeting on February 16th. I am not at liberty to say what was discussed and what the topic was because it involves some legal situation. So, but just to let you know, that did occur. Then the regular February meeting for the delegates was on the 18th. And the FCC is sponsoring a local lens forum like they have in the past, online only. And the topic this time around is the municipal clerk's office and role and what it does for our municipality and the city. With regard to the FCC delegate meeting in particular, we didn't have, let's see. Let me just grab this. It mostly focused on discussion of the draft 2 bylaws, and this is also under old and new business, so I won't go into any kind of detail, but we did spend a significant amount of time on that particular topic. And then we also had, let's see, the mayor's office represented. And so Graham Downey indicated that, well, let's see, that about they went over the bond package on the April 7th muni ballot and that sort of thing. And then somebody asked about the CIP, capital improvement project surveys that councils are asked to rank projects and the priority of them. And so they are waiting for planning, project management and engineering to come up with that. And so we haven't received any kind of notice so far that when it's time to look at our annual CIP, how we might want to rank projects or add or take away any of them. And then there was questions with regard to the mayor attending community council meetings when she ran for the office and said shortly after she was elected, she would try to attend each community council meeting at least twice in a year's time. But that hasn't happened. In fact, we haven't had her approach Turnagain for attendees. So they're going to try and work on that and improve that. And so that was kind of the gist of the regular meeting. And if anybody has any non-bylaws related questions about what was discussed. Nobody's telling me that there's any hand raised. So we'll go ahead and mention one last thing, that there is nominations are, let's see, let me grab that particular item, that there is notice of nominations for Volunteer of the Year, Member of the Year award, and nominations are open right now. And if you aren't a regular attendee, you may not know this, but John Isaacs was nominated by Turnagain Community Council last year, and he received that honor. So again, thank you, John. Well deserved, very well deserved. And so we'll see what kind of nominations the FCC receives for this year. So any questions? Okay, let's see. Okay, so we'll move on to reports. So since I cannot see who all has joined us, do we have anyone representing the mayor's office? Is Graham Downey or anyone else attending this evening? I don't hear anybody say yes or no,
No.
so I'm assuming nobody from the
No.
mayor's report is. Okay, assembly report. And Anna, if you're with us, I cannot see you, but there you are. Hi, Anna.
Yeah.
Welcome, and
Hello.
the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. I'll give some updates and also I'll first to just respond to a few things. Yeah, sorry I missed the FCC meeting. Normally I would go and give a report. I was in Juneau advocating for, among other things, school funding and just kind of checking in where things are at. And, you know, we know that there's not a lot of capital project opportunity now, but just keeping those relationships with legislators. And they were in the middle of debating the supplemental budget, which I think is still, as Senator Clayman already gave the update, still work in progress. Another thing on the boundaries, thanks Kathy for mentioning the mean high tide versus low tide. That is something that, you know, we looked into, and the recommendation was really from staff that that's not like a standard boundary that can be drawn. But I think just to remind folks, you know, you don't have to have something in your boundaries to comment. Obviously, there's certain notices or processes that do require, you know, geography or notice on things like liquor licenses. But I think, you know, we want to hear from councils, especially on issues that affect multiple councils or Cook Inlet or things like that. So thanks for staying involved. And then lastly, I'll mention the municipal lands. I don't have an update yet, but I will talk with HLB. I know they were in the middle of kind of getting their you know, the work plan updated, and they have some other projects underway. So I'll follow up with them this spring and see what I can find out. So then I'll move on to just a few updates. Let's see. So it's March. So I'm trying to remember what I have to share here. A couple things, I'm just checking my notes from earlier. Okay. One is just a couple projects I'm working on. So one is the public safety, a new version of the Public Safety Commission. I don't have a specific update on that, but just to say we are working on it. So there was a task force that you know, did some work, and then the sponsors, myself and Cameron Perez-Verdia and Felix Rivera, are going to work on an ordinance. I will say we're not exactly copying and pasting what the task force brought together, but they gave us a lot of things to think about, and so look for hopefully something introduced before Felix leaves, because I know that was one of his priorities. So we're looking at March for that. And then another one that I know is getting some attention is regulating data centers. So I want to just give some comment on that. Obviously, data centers are, they're not really a new technology. They've been around for a while, but they've gotten a lot bigger with a lot more computer servers in them and computing power. And we've seen a lot of them built all over the United States. So you might have seen pictures of ones that are, you know, the size of a Walmart. There's also ones that are the size of like a broom closet. You know, they can be different sizes. And really, I think it's raised a lot of great questions here and in other communities around energy usage, right? We know that that we are facing natural gas shortages here. We know water usage is an issue. There's some that are built in the Southwest where they're much more scarce on water. And we also know from experience of other communities, you know, they can generate a lot of noise, right? There's just kind of known impacts of these things, which, you know, should be balanced against the economic benefits, right? They can make renewable energy projects more feasible. They certainly are needed for all of the computing, you know, whether it's our phones or laptops or everything else. So anyway, so there's a lot of valid questions to ask around utilities, you know, who gets priority in the energy usage, all those kinds of things. Most of those really need to be answered at the state level. And so when looking at our codes, what I found is that really our zoning code doesn't contemplate these. And the closest thing that it does have is basically what they call a data processing facility, which is really, it describes employees processing data, right? So it's like an office building. That is very different than what an actual data center is, whether it's large or small. So really all this ordinance does is, because I've also heard some folks saying we don't want these at all, they should be banned. Other folks saying you're trying to kill the economy, you know, just by having these regulations, right? So we're trying to go for that middle ground. recognizing that, again, these can have some benefits. And I think there's opportunities in Anchorage and in Alaska, but also that we don't want to end up with all the issues that other communities have found, especially, once a lot of them are built, and then trying to put that genie back in the bottle, so to speak. So this updates our zoning code to create data centers as a designated use, or not designated, but a specific use in our code. It requires that it goes through the conditional use process. So one of our existing processes for review. And then it makes it clear that they can be in industrial areas, some commercial areas, but they cannot be in residential areas, right? So if there's something that's not regulated in our code, it becomes unclear. And I think we have an opportunity to be proactive before we see the first application, which I think is, inevitable. We'll see one eventually, to just kind of look at that up front. So that's what it does. We had a public hearing that was open on March 3rd. It's still open, and it'll be back on the assembly agenda on March 24th. We're working on a new version that doesn't change really what I just described. But we got some good feedback from the planning department, from utilities and others, just to make sure the technical language is, will work. And so look for some small rewrite of that, but not changing kind of what I described as the underlying intent. And then the last couple things I'll talk about. One, I guess I'll give a shout out to West High. I'm actually wearing the West High Filipino Club sweatshirt that I got the other day. Last year's sweatshirt, I should say. Had a good conversation with them at West High during the school day, but also they let me know that there's a great event coming up, the West High Multicultural, I think it's festival or multicultural night. So it's open to the public. It is on Wednesday, April 1st. I am not involved in organizing it, but it sounds like a great event. And I've heard from everybody who recognizes that event that it's really well attended. It's, not just for students, but really a great chance to eat some good food, learn about other cultures and just celebrate that part of our community. Lastly, I will talk about elections. So I know that's already come up. So just reminders, anything around elections, you can go to the clerk's office website. It's muni.org/elections. And then, as was said, last day to register to vote is Sunday, March 8th. That's 30 days before the election. That's why it is on that date. Happens to be Sunday this year. Ballots will be mailed on Tuesday, March 17th, and then the election ends 8 p.m. on Tuesday, April 7th. So if you have questions, or let's say, I didn't get my ballot, or I'm going to be out of town, how can I do absentee voting? Any question like that you have, you can call the voter hotline, which is 907-243-VOTE or 243-8683, and they can help you out. So, and then of course, there's a lot of other information on the website there. So that's just the short version. I will talk about some of the things on the ballot this year. So our props and bonds. And I can put in the chat, I think I can send PDFs through the chat, but also I've asked the mayor's office if they can send these to the Federation of Community Councils so that they can be distributed, because they're of citywide interest, some fact sheets. So I'll put those in the chat when I'm done talking. But just to note, the propositions you can expect to see, Proposition 1 is the school bond. And a few projects on there, like upgrading access control. You'll see that from multiple facilities, really secure front entrance, a few other projects. Proposition 2, that's our ARDSA bond, our road and drainage bond. One of the things on there for Turnagain's interest is the design money for the Turnagain Street. So again, just design, but getting that road redesigned to be more feasible to be able to fix eventually. On the Parks bond, that's Proposition 3. So we've got things like the Fish Creek Trail project. There's some money for Spurnard Rec Center, Town Square Park. I don't have all the details on what all of these are, but just to note, there are some either of interest to folks in this area or actually in the area. Proposition 4 is a police bond, just some small improvements to the Elmore Station parking lot. Proposition 5 is facilities. That one I want to note, it includes the Performing Arts Center. There's some fire suppression kind of things that are out of code. So that's a really important update to keep that building open. Some upgrades to Lusac Library, and then the Old City Hall boilers, which is relevant for the downtown library that's planned. So some facility kind of maintenance there. Prop 6 is our area-wide safety and transit bond. That includes something that I know all neighborhoods are a big fan of, which is traffic calming. And so our traffic calming money is actually not in the ARDSA bond. It's not in the road bond. And it's one that can be applied in multiple areas of town. So that's the money that goes towards speed humps, lighting, all that kind of thing. Just a few more. Proposition 7 is fire. So that's some fire engine replacements. Proposition 8 is the Chugach area or Chugach Access Service Area Bond. So it's got money for a Basher trailhead that's over on the east side, as well as some signage on Stewart Trail. That's the newish service area that helps pay for improvements next to Chugach State Park, where people access it well beyond the folks who live in that area. The last two are Proposition 9, the special tax levy for the Anchorage School District. That's separate from the school bond. It is for operating money. The school bond is for capital money. And I think I've briefed everybody on that one as well. And that one, again, is different than a bond. It's not a loan, but it is still, it would add to your property taxes. And then lastly, there is one charter amendment. So it's a proposition. It doesn't have to do with money. And it removes reference to the Anchorage telephone utility in our charter. So that's something that hasn't existed for probably 20 to 25 years. But of course, we can't change the charter without a vote of the people. And so this is really just a cleanup item. So you can vote against it, but it won't bring the telephone utility back. So just to note, that's something you'll see on your ballot. And that's probably the least impactful, but it's always good to clean up our charter and make sure that we're not referencing things that don't exist anymore. So with that, I will take questions.
Okay. I believe, Amanda, you have a question?
Okay, yes, thank you, Member Brawley. And I saw that there is coming up a joint assembly school board meeting. And I recall that at the last meeting, I believe you and Member Silvers did a really great job of just bringing up some of the management of the, sorry, I just took the pizza out of the oven and now the dog is
Oh, it's okay.
going crazy. So I will remove upstairs here. Of the mismanagement in Anchorage School District. And so some of us teachers and parents, we've seen a lot of bond money not be used for the specific situations that voters approved. And what is your take on that as far as asking for accountability for the school district? Because I noticed that in the ballot ordinance that was passed, the accountability language was taken out. So I'm just interested in your response on that.
Yeah, thanks. And I guess I'm not sure. I think the accountability language you're referring to was an amendment. And I know that one it's tricky really to do policy when we're talking about funding, right? And so we really have to be careful what we put in the charter. I do think accountability is important. I think, we know the school district, like the Muni, does an annual audit. And I think really the questions that I keep hearing raised about, like you said, bond money and where it was repurposed, I think really gets more toward kind of the making sure that we are always communicating or kind of having a good feedback loop with the public about, for example, if a project is not feasible or if it, I'm trying to think of the specific example where that was repurposed. And I'll bring up one as well that I know has come up this year. Obviously, a lot of folks involved with the Campbell STEM Elementary, are understandably upset. That's a whole other discussion, really. But I do know the question came up, well, that is on the bond. So what is that actually going to pay for? What it will pay for is not the program, the Campbell STEM, but Lake Otis Elementary, where it is housed, is slated to become the new home for Rilkeshul. So they're in Abbott Loop Elementary right now. That building for a long time has been known to need it's basically past its service life and needs to be torn down. So this was a temporary move to put them there. And so the building improvement would help the school that's moving in there. So again, that is a separate discussion from, I know there's a lot of frustration about the Campbell decision, and that's something that I think we'll talk about at that joint meeting. But I've also asked for kind of a briefing on, what does happen when you repurpose bonds. And so I think we'll have a good discussion there. And then lastly, I'll mention at that school board meeting, it's our last meeting before we unfortunately have to vote on the school budget as well. I think no one's looking forward to that vote. And I'm sure the school board members definitely did not want to be in the position they were, but we are where we are. And so on that meeting, the joint meeting, we're going to talk about how to basically, if that ballot or if that levy passes, allowing for the school board to amend its budget without having to go back to the assembly for an additional vote, because at some point we have to set our tax levies, right? So we'll do that during our budget revision process.
And if I can interrupt for the specific question is about the mismanagement you saw that you pointed out at the last joint meeting. how do you plan on addressing mismanagement with these? Because I don't see it in the bond language, any addressment of mismanagement. And I'm wondering what you, as an assembly member, for helping those families would address for mismanagement in the district.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, in terms of bond projects, I think again, it would be difficult to put language or to put the assumption that it's being mismanaged on the ballot. I think we have to be very careful about the language we use on the ballot. Certainly, I don't want to see funds mismanaged. I want to better understand why those decisions were made. And I think there's also a separation of what the assembly does versus what the school board does. And so, we certainly have oversight. They are utilizing our buildings. But in terms of the nitty gritty of the budget, we decide basically what the tax levy is, and we don't go in and do line item vetoes. We're very cautious about putting things in code that require things of the school district or the school board. So I think it's an ongoing conversation. And it's hard for me to say, I don't support mismanagement, but it's also hard for me to comment on the specifics without having that in front of me right now.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Thank you, Amanda. Does anybody else have any questions for Anna?
Sarah,
Jean, go ahead. I see
Sarah.
Jean Blasky has her hand up. So Jean?
Sarah has her hand up first.
Oh,
Yeah, I think
I
Sarah was
apologize.
first,
I can't see everybody, so help me out.
No.
So
Yeah, that's okay. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. And I want to say thank you for your efforts on updating the language in the charter. As somebody who's been spending a lot of time removing the word pager and jukebox from agreements that are 50 years old, it's just a great thing that we're doing. So thank you for that. And then I'm wondering if we do send out all of those PDFs through the FCC, maybe we could kill two birds with one stone. Amanda had spoken earlier about a bunch of different deadlines for voting, and we talked briefly about maybe sending that out. Could you, through the Muni, also include that in the FCC notice, and then we'd have all of the different bond packages. Everything could be all in one easy to digest email through the FCC out to everyone.
Yeah, I'm happy to ask the clerk's office to send that information, and then I don't tell the FCC what to send, but
Sure.
but yeah, I think it's both relevant to the election, so certainly can recommend that they get that out to everybody.
Okay, great, awesome, thank you.
Jean Balaski.
thank you, Sarah. Go ahead, Jean.
Yeah, Anna, thanks for all your work and everything. And this might be a very quick answer, and I'll find out more as we get more information about what's on the ballot. I just am wondering, I love trails, I love parks. New trails and parks are great, but how about repair of the trails we already have? Is there anything about that? Llaneri Park bike trail is almost unrideable. The coastal trail is fine, but the trail up in the park is just roots, and you can't push strollers. You have to get off your bike. And is there anything about that coming up for us?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think, because I know sometimes trails are actually included, if they're next to roads, they're considered multi-use paths. Not this situation. This would probably be a parks project. I don't know if there's a specific pot of money to do that. But I wonder, because I know, like I said, sometimes there's, for pavement rehabilitation or things like that, where it's a small pot of money. I think one thing you all could do is prioritize that as a CIP priority through the process. I don't think it's on this year's bond because there's only a few specific projects, but I think it's a good point. And I think there's probably other areas that, span different parks or things like that need attention. So
yeah, between Nathaniel and Postmark, that bike trail as well along Earthquake Park, pretty rough.
Yeah. And I know there were parts of the coastal trail redone, but I think it didn't include those. So, I think I don't know of a specific project on this year's bond to do that, but I think that's actually a great CIP priority to bring forward and maybe pull in a few different areas and say, can we repave these trails? Because it made a huge difference on the Fish Creek Trail behind those, like Barbara Street, that kind of area.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and FYI, I believe it is on our CIP list. I think it got put on last year because it was
Oh, great.
identified. So,
Okay, great.
okay. Anybody else have anything for Anna? Okay. Don't hear anybody say anything. So thank you so much, Anna. Appreciate all your work. And
Graham Downey is back on, and so is Kelly Lessons.
okay, so why don't we go back for mayor's report with Graham? So welcome, Graham.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Was
Sure.
planning to talk about the bonds, but Anna did such a great job talking about them. It sounds like all the questions have been mostly answered, but I'm happy to provide more information or answer more questions about bonds if that's helpful.
Anybody have any questions about what's on the ballot for bond? So I guess I've got just a follow up on what we just discussed. Repair of trails, repair of potholes, roads, those kind of things. Barring putting them on our CIP list every year and ranking them as important. They're not feasible really for bond. Would that be safe to say? Just kind of like Anna alluded to.
Well, I think maybe feasible is not. Yeah, I understand. Well, I guess maybe what I would say is that this bond package is pretty focused on repair of what we have. I think that we're going to have a really hard time building new given the amount of deferred maintenance. I mean, one estimate, which I think is probably an underestimate, says that our roads have $1 billion of backlog in terms of deferred maintenance. So, and then we've got probably another billion in storm drain backlog. So, the total bond package this year is less than or right around 48 million, I want to say. So it's going to take a lot of years of bonds to make up for that backlog. And it's not like the roads are getting in better shape while we're at it. So I think that's definitely something we're going to have to grapple with as a community is what do we have the resources to maintain? And I think that's where you all making your priorities really clear in the CIP creates a lot of value. So when you all tell us like, hey, this is our number one priority, this is really an issue we have in our community, that really helps us to then prioritize it in the bond package. But when you've got 15 different priorities, it can sometimes be hard to make progress on all of them. And I know there's really hard choices to make there. So that's just something we're going to have to grapple with as a community, I think, moving forward. But I would say in general, this bond package is really focused on maintaining what we have, taking care of what we have. The as Anna mentioned, the community facilities bond, that's putting a new roof on municipal buildings so that the rain doesn't get in, so we don't have a bigger bill later. Fixing up the PAC in particular, which just has a ton of issues with water getting in, causing internal damage. So the ARDSA bond is almost exclusively like storm drain improvements and pavement preservation. There's only a couple sort of named road projects in there. It's almost all maintenance. And similarly, it's the Campbell Creek Trail and the Fish Creek Trail is maybe a new one, but mostly there in the Parks Bond, it's taking care of what we have.
Okay, thank you, Graham. Anybody else have any questions or input to Graham? Amanda, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Graham, and thank you for mentioning that about the priorities. And I can imagine it's really hard, especially trying to cover such a big municipality like Anchorage. I guess for me as a teacher, and I'm seeing this every day since as a specialist, I see every single class at the schools. And it's really those large class sizes that are just really impeding a lot of learning. I have a first grade class with 30 kiddos in it, and there's just one teacher. So when the levy language didn't make it through the mayor's office and the assembly with only addressing the student teacher ratio, I was really, really disappointed and actually, saddened by what I saw, that it wouldn't go that it would not go all to teacher student ratios. So can you, having the word educational services in there too. So what was the mayor's decision in doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kelly might be better able to speak to that, but my understanding is that there is actually, I heard your question about accountability earlier, and my understanding from the bond language is that it is pretty narrow and it will be used for teachers. So my understanding is if we
But
don't pass the
unfortunately,
bond,
yeah, unfortunately, the language does say educate. It was specifically added educational services. So my question is, what are these educational services that then they're important enough to include that it could take away from additional teachers put in those classrooms?
yeah, I guess, my understanding, and Kelly can speak to this more, is that the vast majority of that money is going to teachers. And I guess I don't totally know what the word educational services means in this context, but maybe Kelly could help us understand a little better. I know, or Anna has her hand raised too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, just to say from the legal perspective, so we did ask basically because there was that question, right? How do we make sure that voters can feel confident of where the money goes? And I think on the assembly side, it gets tricky because the assembly doesn't set line item the school budget, right? So we vote on the total, and so then we got in this whole rabbit hole of like, well, is it different if the voters dedicate that money versus the assembly is anyway. So Kelly has more information about what the discussion has been about what that money could be used for. But I think legally we had some restrictions on our end that we just wanted to be careful of too.
Okay, well, that is a good transition into our school board report. Hey, Kelly. And thanks so much, Graham. Well, one last thing. Anybody else have any other questions for Graham real quick before we move on? I'm being told nothing. So thank you so much, Graham. We appreciate your attendance and your participation. So Kelly Lesson, school board report, welcome.
Hi, I'm on my phone in my car, which is a little bit cold, but I guess my phone is keeping my hand warm. So I also feel a little Blair Witch Project-y with the lighting in here. So a lot has been happening both on the, in our board meetings over the past month. And I don't really know where to begin, but maybe I'm just going to play whack-a-mole and kind of dispel some misinformation that I feel like I'm hearing. I think it's really important for people to understand a number of things. Number one, the budget has been balanced by the school board. We closed a $90 million deficit, and we have passed that on to the assembly. And Anna Member Brawley is right that it's now their turn to make a really awful vote to bring that budget forward. I was proud to see our board make very strategic decisions in that meeting to bring back as many nurses as we possibly could to prioritize the health and safety of our students. I was also pleased that we were able to resurrect sports and activities to the extent that we could. All of them will be back in middle school and high school next year, with the exception of gymnastics and esports. Those were two areas that were really critical. In addition, there were 16 middle school teachers that were brought back from that budget. And we created space with about the equivalent of 3.5 teacher positions to allow as many middle schoolers as possible to access a seventh period, a zero period, really, because the middle school model, which had previously provided for 7 classes in a day, was one of the many things that was cut in that budget. So we were able to make some strategic add backs through some targeted reductions and through school consolidation. So we did close and consolidate 3 schools: Fire Lake Elementary up in the Eagle River area, Lake Otis Elementary, and Campbell STEM Elementary. That's a reflection of community input. Back in December, we had a survey go out, and 85% of respondents said that we needed to close schools. And as our deficit became clearer, that became the path forward that the board voted on. Moving forward towards April, but also pausing in February, we do have 2 initiatives before voters. I came into the meeting a little bit late. I know that we've talked a little bit about the bond here and a little bit about the levy. I was pleased that in our budget adoption meeting on February 24th, the board adopted a finance committee amendment directing the administration to allocate 100% of the $11.8 million towards classroom teacher positions. It specifies in the amendment that we passed that there would be 80 teacher positions and 3.44 kindergarten paraprofessional positions that will be added back to ASD classrooms K through 12 district-wide upon the successful passage of the levy. So what does that mean? That means that the increase in pupil-teacher ratio of +4 that we approved, the increase would be cut by half effectively. So it would be it would behoove it would be the best possible scenario for our children if Anchorage voters voted to support Proposition 9, which is the levy. Pivoting to so I hope that dispels some of the rumors and misinformation and maybe lack of clarity that people may have had. Proposition 1 is the ASD school bond. It is about $79.5 million. And I think it's really important to understand where we are. Number one, for a decade, starting in 2015, the state put a school bond debt reimbursement moratorium into effect. That resulted in Anchorage taxpayers shouldering the burden of those bonds, which also resulted in the Anchorage School District and many boards before me really putting as little onto the bonds as possible. That bond aggregate amount each year was kept as low as it could be, which allowed us to repay debt, but also made our backlog in school maintenance increase from a few $100 million to $1.5 billion. So with the return of school bond debt reimbursement this year, the administration and board actually project that this bond will be the smallest projected tax impact to voters in more than 10 years because we expect to receive 50% bond reimbursement on that $79.4 million. Considering this particular community council, I'll flag that the biggest item on the bond is the first part of what will need to be a 2-phase renovation of Romig Middle School. So that is the biggest single ticket on the item, but it does impact 20 schools district-wide, finishing up safety and security updates for vestibules and these building access control units. There are improvements to the Lake Otis building, which will be given to Rilke Schule should their APC accept it. It will continue the life of that building for many, many years into ASD's future. There are a handful of other schools on the bond. There's also an item for the student nutrition facility, which is really important as the district is rolling out a return to more freshly prepared foods for students rather than the heat and serve in a sort of plastic tray setup that students have been using in recent years. So that's a really exciting and positive change for our students to have more whole foods that are more appropriately cooked to the proper temperature to be palatable. And then there's also an item for one of our schools on Bailey, Ursa Major, which had to be shut down when it failed a structural test a couple of years ago. The administration has secured an 20% match from the Department of Defense to rebuild that school. So we've put our 20% down. DOD is ready for the other 80%. Unfortunately, there were PCBs involved in the construction of that building. And so now we need to ask taxpayers to help pay for demolishing that and shipping the hazardous material out of state. So that is really what is on the bond. It will, again, be the smallest projected tax impact in more than 10 years. And for more information on the bond, you can go to our website, which is asdk12.org/bond, and that will have more information. But that is the short version of everything that I've been doing the past 5 or 6 weeks. And I know that there probably are questions, but I'm on the phone, so it might be harder to see them.
Wow. Thanks, Kelly. And thanks for all your hard work. We're kind of at our agenda where we need to move on. I think there has already been discussion about and questions answered about the school bond. So Thank you so much. We really appreciate it, and we'll see what happens on April 7th.
Great. Okay. Well, and it's started.
Okay.
Everybody.
Let's see. So I don't think anybody else are raising their hand or anything like that. I'm getting attention that my internet is not stable. So can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I see in the chat room, Kathleen asked the meeting host, that would be you, Dan, if people can identify themselves as members or visitors. So I'm not sure, since I can't see hardly anybody attending, I'm not sure what you're referring to, Kathleen, but maybe you and Dan can go back and forth and see what we can do about that. Okay, so we're ready to have our airport report. And Lex, I assume you're with us. I cannot see you, so I apologize.
I've not
Lex,
seen
are
her.
you attending?
I've
Sorry.
not seen her.
I don't see Lex attending tonight.
Oh, okay.
Nope.
She's not logged on.
Nope.
Okay, well, that's unusual. Hopefully we'll get back to that. If she shows up, please let me know. Okay. Okay, then we'll get down to old and new business. And the first item on the agenda for that is Peyton, are you with us? There you are. Welcome, Peyton.
Thank you.
So you're going to present some information about the Fish Creek Plaza Coastal Tale Turnout 65% design. So that's a new title for this project. So you can start with that and see how we came up with that name and then describe where we're at on this project.
Yeah, I shared my screen. Can you all see the Plaza project rendering?
Yes.
You could enlarge it.
Yeah. So the name of the project, Chatanalsa, that's actually the Dena'ina name for Fish Creek. It means yellow water comes out. So that's part of the larger Indigenous Place Names project. So we have this IPN sign here, and that will be the name on the sign, but it's still the Fish Creek Plaza. But I also wanted to go through the discussion and recommendations from the ad hoc committee from last time and how the design's been updated since 35%. So the first question was about if the existing and second turnout proposed just east of the Fish Creek Trail Bridge would be the same footprint as the existing sizes. And yes, we will be remaining in the existing footprints. We don't want to add any fill to the inlet or any of that. The second discussion item was if existing vegetation, both trees and shrubs at both turnouts would be retained. And yes, the existing vegetation will be retained to the extent possible. However, there probably likely will be some pruning and trimming along the edges just as construction activities take place. But we will also be proposing some small shrubs and grasses that are appropriate for that location at the estuary and along the coast. We don't want to block any view sheds, but just to help make it look a little bit more complete and help hopefully prevent some people from trying to go down to the mud flats. The third discussion item was there's a proposed. Oh, yes.
I apologize for just butting in, but when you say maybe grass planted, the problem with planting grass is it's not maintained, and then it just gets really ratty and half dead. And so I'm not sure where you might be proposing grass, but we might want to take a closer look at that.
Yeah, I'm talking about more like ornamental kind of grasses, not like seed. But yeah, we will be looking at, because that is a concern as well as maintenance. We don't want anything that gets out of control. But I will take a note of that as well as we continue our discussions about that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So we are proposing a bench, a custom bench in this area. I don't have it in here yet because we're still working on the concept, so we don't have a footprint, but some ideas that are being floated about is either, one big bench or potentially having two smaller benches. So it, might be a little bit easier to walk through here. But that footprint will be added and as soon as we have a better sense of the design. But there are 3 donor benches that currently exist here. So we are proposing to relocate them to this smaller plaza and have 2 face the inlet and 1 face the estuary. And we are also proposing to re-powder coat the legs. I have another little graphic here. This is what the bench currently looks like. And so we would like to re-powder coat that black because the interpretive signage we're proposing is also black powder coated, and so is the bike rack. So just trying to make it all look together.
Have we seen a design of that interpretive signage? I don't think so yet.
No, this is new as well. So we're proposing a waist height kiosk, pretty standard, and the content will remain largely the same. Great Land Trust is just working to update some of the text just to modernize it, but there were requirements they had to meet when they first installed it, and they're ensuring that any change is still in line with that. And then for the graphics, we have a watercolorist who will help with those as well, and we're working with Great Land Trust on that.
Will TCC have a chance to review that kind of stuff before it's finalized?
Yes, we can share what we work on. I will note that.
I think before anything is set in stone, our input would be positive since you've accepted it and responded to it pretty well before.
Right. And yes, so the proposal for the bench is we're keeping comfort and functionality and accessibility in place. So we're looking at something that can face both ways so that people can see the inlet and the estuary, but we also want to have a backed section as well. So we're looking at that in the design. The next item was supporting demarcation between the trail and turnout areas with some kind of marking. There was concern about the turnout areas that would include metal inlays and that it may be slippery when wet, and we agree, especially people are biking around this corner. If your tire catches that, we don't want anybody slipping or getting hurt. So we've adjusted the design. So what you can see here, this fan-like branching pattern is the design intent is to represent the flowing water, the pattern created by flowing water in an estuary. And so this textured area we're proposing as being exposed aggregate concrete that also has a little bit more traction, a little more slip resistant. And then the other light gray areas would be standard broom finish concrete. So that's a pretty big change since the last time you've seen this design. There was also a question. We had proposed a lower trail through here, and there was a recommendation to delete that, to not encourage trail users to use it to access the mud flats. And so we moved the trail up here just along the coastal trail because we do think it's important to have some sort of connection between these plazas. We think it could be a safety concern if people are coming on and off between the 2 spaces. So we've just connected it through here, and this is about a 4-foot wide trail. So it kind of serves as like a sidewalk along the trail.
So that'll be concrete as well?
Yes, this will all be concrete. And there was a recommendation to retain the posted warning sign at the turnout. That's up here, and we also would like to retain that. There was support for the proposed location of the Indigenous place marker at the existing turnout right here that is also remaining in the same location. There was support for upgrading the donor and educational sign at the turnout, as long as the design retains good readability of text, which yes, we're working with Great Land Trust on that as well. And so we are proposing the interpretive kiosks will be over in this main plaza, and we're proposing the Great Land Trust donor sign over in this smaller plaza, and we are proposing to use this sign type. It's part of the Anchorage Parks and Recreation wayfinding sign types, and so we can customize these panels on it to have one panel explaining GLT and their mission, as well as, and then the donor names would be on all the remaining sides. And yes, we're working with Great Land Trust on that. And we touched on this a little bit, but you had wanted to learn more about the proposed new signage design and content. Yeah, the content of the sign will largely remain the same about the urban estuary and the watershed. And yes, we'll be working in-house to develop the painting graphics for it. If you've been to Cuddy Park, there's a nice kiosk with a watercolor background, and we're not doing that same one, but it would be similar watercolor style. And then lastly, there was a recommendation. The bike rack originally had been in the middle of the plaza. There was a recommendation to move them so they're not parallel for safety purposes, and so they've been moved over to this area off to the side. And I think that was all the questions or all the discussion items I wanted to review. If there's any other questions or feedback, I will be meeting with the project team again on Tuesday, so I can bring any additional comments back to them for further discussion.
Okay, thank you, Peyton. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this newer version of the plaza? And I can't, okay, I can't see your hand, Steve, so go ahead.
Okay. Hey, Peyton, so excuse me for being backwards to the existing memorial or sign there that's there right now. What's going to happen with that?
We will be in discussions with Great Land Trust about whether it gets salvaged or what they would like to do with it. So yeah, it's that three-way kiosk.
Okay, and there's any way that can remain there or in some part in this whole plaza?
Well, so there's the three panels. The one is urban estuary, one is the watershed, and one is the donor names. So that content of those signs will be there. It's just going to be redesigned.
Okay.
Yeah. So the watershed and urban estuary panels will be here. And then the donor information and Great Land Trust information will be here.
Okay, that's what you call it. Thank you.
Yes.
Can I follow up on that one, please? Where you've relocated the Great Land Trust donor sign, and it's gonna like be more of a pole with four sides. The information will go four sides all the way around it. Is that correct?
Yes.
So
yes.
You're tucking it clear at the edge of that smaller turnout. I can't kind of sense how easily it will be to walk around the whole thing to try and read all four sides, and right off the edge of that place where, bikers like to zoom on curves. If that's actually, that may not be the safest place to put something like that certainly in its other configuration gets a lot of viewing. And I would think that this would as well, but I'm questioning the location of it. I think it's too close to right when you come out of that bridge and on that curve, and it doesn't look like there's that much space there. So we may want to revisit that location.
Okay. I will take a note of that and bring it up in our meeting on Tuesday.
Okay, does anybody else have any input? Those of you who are on the committee that did the walk there and viewing initially back when we were chilly, anybody have any comments or any
Sorry
questions?
about that.
Yeah,
This
Dan.
is a lot better design than what we saw first time. I like the trails a lot better. It's not down on the bottom like it was. It's the benches look better. I'm just very pleased at the changes.
Thank you. Yes, we're very excited about it. Oh, and also we are planning to host a celebration event once this plaza is constructed, and right now it's tentatively planned for end of August, but I just wanted to let you all know to keep your ears open for that. And Kathy, I can also send you more information on that once we schedule it in case anybody would like to attend.
Sure, that'd be great. We don't meet in August typically, but we can certainly, get the word out through our email list. So that would be fun. So when you've got that connecting trail up at the same level as the coastal trail, which is something I think, yeah, like you said, our committee was concerned about to have it down closer to the mud flats. Is that going to remove a lot of the vegetation though that is now there?
That extent probably would trim it back. Just yeah, because it would be construction activities taking it out, but we can replace some along these edges as well. Yeah, we just think it's an important connection to have.
John, John?
Anybody else?
No.
Yeah, can you define again what broom finish is? Because I'm not familiar with what that may look like.
Yeah, it's just like the standard on a sidewalk finish. Just that standard, just kind of swept look.
Okay. All right.
Yes, yes.
Okay, anybody else have anything? I guess the next thing that we would want to do as a community council is when you've are moving forward with the signage and other aspects of this, that we have another opportunity to provide input and take a look at things, especially the bench designs, because we want them to be usable, and creativity is great, but that sort of thing. And where those bike racks, what design they'll be, if it's different from the
Yeah.
different ones.
I can show you the design of the bike racks. It is this one right here. So it's, oops. These were designed by Sebastian Garber. He's helped with the IPN project. This is the quill work pattern based on the beadwork on the fire bag, which is what this piece is inspired by. So yes, this is what the benches or the bike racks will look like. And we're also proposing replacing the garbage here as well. I think I said earlier, with the powder coating of the benches and the sign, we'd like it all to have a cohesive look. So we're proposing a black garbage there.
A black one?
Yes.
Instead of the usual green that
yes.
we all
Yeah, we want the black kiosk posts, and we'll make the donor bench legs black to match with the bike rack as well.
And why black?
Just to keep it all together and cohesive, and we want kind of the weathering steel to stand out. So we had decided on those colors, and the cap and the bracket for this signage as well. We just want it to all look together.
It seems a little harsh for that beautiful area to throw in a lot of kind of modern looking black, but that's something that we could continue to have discussion over and see if there's any other input, because black seems a little harsh for that beautiful soft area of the estuary.
Okay, I will take a note of that. Amanda?
Hi, thanks. I just have a question about the height of the IPN sign. I love just the vista that is out there, and the interpretive signage that I've seen, right, being lower, so you still have that vista. So what is the thinking behind, is that IPN sign going to be significantly tall, and what is the rationale behind that?
So this sign is part of a larger project, the IPN movement. So there's 32 signs that have been placed throughout Anchorage and Eagle River and Eklutna. And so the thinking is that you should be able to come upon it and see it, and then you go up to it and learn the Denina name and the story associated with that place. And so the placement here, the thinking is that there's still all this other area for the viewing vistas, and that when you come around the corner, you see the IPN sign and you're drawn to it and drawn to the plaza to learn more about it.
And what's the height of the sign, please?
It is 9 feet tall.
Okay. Yeah, just the feedback for the record would just be that it seems pretty tall for if the point is to make it more about the natural features. Thank you.
Okay. I guess when the committee met out on site, and that was identified as the location for the indigenous place marker at that point, and those of us who were out on site thought that that was a really good spot because it's not wide. It's tall, but it's not wide, and so all you have to do is take one step over and the vista is still there. So Amanda, just so you know, we did talk about that. We took that into consideration and we decided that was a good location.
And this location was selected with Aaron Leggett, the president of the Native Village of Eklutna. He has helped select with all the locations as well.
Okay, anything else for Peyton before we move on? Thank you so much, Peyton. And we really appreciate taking our council's input into consideration because, this is a very visible spot within our community council area. And of course, viewed by so many who use the coastal trail year round in that area. So if we could maybe chat some more and still tweak a few things, this looks good. And then we'd probably take some more action with regard to, our approval of what's, proposed. So
Great.
Thank you, Peyton. We really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
So keep in touch.
Yes, I will stay in touch. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next on our agenda under old and new business is update for the spring 2026 West Anchorage Candidates Forum that was discussed at our last meeting. And I have not been as well organized to kind of jumpstart this as I had intended, but did talk with and went to every other community council, Spenard and Sand Lake and Taku Campbell, and discussed with them the idea, and they all supported it and liked the idea. And so there are initial steps being taken, as Amanda had indicated to me via email, and I appreciate your persistence. And so we need to get a committee meeting set up shortly. And candidates have been contacted, and I've heard back from about 3 of them, I believe, so far about what their availability on dates is. And Anna had indicated to me before in an email, what dates wouldn't work for her, and which is appreciative. So can't say, nothing's been determined about a venue. And so it's a cat and mouse thing on first we need to know what date works for candidates and then see what venue might be available. But then our committee can continue to, get together and work on publicity and all the details that will come once we've got this thing, a date and time and place decided. So that's kind of the update right now. And I'll be sending out an email as long as I've got emails for everybody from all 4 councils on the volunteers that want to participate, so that we can line up a meeting, hopefully sometime next week, so that we can jump on this. So does anybody have any questions about the candidates forum and the status of where we're at now?
Thanks, Kathy. The timing of it is really related to that March 17th send out of the ballots, so that beginning March 18th, people can start mailing back their ballots or dropping off their ballots. So that's why having a forum before that 17th date is really important.
I know last year we did not have it before the ballots were mailed out, but we had a really good turnout and a lot of good discussion regardless. But I hear what you're saying. So that's something that the committee definitely has to be cognizant of. Anybody else have any thoughts or comments about the event? Okay, let's move on then to our next item, which is a 2026 regional trails plan specifically targeting the Turnagain Community Council Westchester Lagoon Area Trails Resolution. And Marnie Isaacs, who's been collaborating with North Star and South Addition Community Councils, has done a yeoman's job of putting this forward. So I will turn the meeting over to you, Marnie.
Oh, okay. Now I'm in. Thanks, Kathy. And good edits, by the way, to the resolution we're going to be considering here. So thank you for your time on that, among all the other things. Some of you may recall that we talked about improvements around Westchester Lagoon a while back and submitted some comments then. That got us into a draft report, and the comments on that draft report are now due on March 31st. And I've updated the South Addition Community Council. They're going to approve this resolution that's before us at their next meeting in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And then I have not had a chance to get to North Star, but they were very supportive of the first round. What this resolution does is just basically keeps it very simple. All we're asking for is that the place of the Westchester Lagoon project, Trails project, be moved from a medium priority to a high priority. And I've talked to Nicolette Dent, who's the project manager, and she said absolutely appropriate. It meets the criteria. There's a huge safety issue they all recognize. So I think we're on the mark there. The other thing we're asking for is that the time to consider this be moved to high. Get this thing done a little bit faster than 3 or 4 or 5 years. Sometimes these projects take quite a long lead time. If it's passed tonight, then I will let South Addition know, and we'll get in touch with North Star and then hand it over, and we don't have to wait for a while. They looking through all this stuff and doing their fiscal analysis and their land use and all the rest of it until I think Nicholas, I think she said the final should be available sometime early summer, maybe June. So that's where we are. If anyone has any questions, otherwise it's just kind of a political statement that the councils are all still in.
Okay, thank you, Marnie. Does anybody have any, just caveat, as Marnie said, the comments on the regional trails plan are, is it March
31st.
31st.
I'm sorry.
Well, March, yeah. So we're going to form an ad hoc committee to look at the rest of the trails plan, which we'll get to after we deal with this resolution, the next item under old and new business. So this resolution, as Marnie pointed out, is just specifically with regard to the Westchester area trails that has been discussed previously at our meeting.
And Kathy, I did run that by Nicolette, that we had some timing issues here. We couldn't get to all of the projects. And she said, no, that's perfectly fine. You just send in whatever comments you can on whatever projects you find important, and this is it.
Okay.
She said, well done. Yeah.
Okay, and just this doesn't have any specific design per se. It's just funding to get kick this off. So there would be plenty of input by the 3 community councils when if there's funding available to come up with a master plan.
That's right. Landowners, bike associations, runners associations, general public, plus a pretty deep dive into space available to widen the trail, which is one of the things we asked for in this resolution, was that it go to a class 6 multi-use 12-foot wide trail. So there'll be a lot of you'll see more of this as they kind of roll through their analysis.
Does anybody have any questions about the resolution?
Sarah, has her hand up.
John, could you screen share the resolution, please?
Yeah, hang on here.
Or Karen, either one.
I'll try screen sharing.
Kathy and Marty, I've got my hand up real quick. If you don't mind, I'm drawing a blank, and I feel like I haven't missed too many meetings, and maybe it'll be discussed in the verbiage in the resolution, but is it mostly congestion? Can you hit on some of the safety, or maybe we're about to do that?
Sarah, your miking is terrible. I can't understand.
Oh dear. Okay, let me do this.
Okay, hopefully you're able to see the resolution.
How's that?
Better.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Sorry. I just, I'm drawing a little blank and I feel like I've been at.
Wait. Sorry, Sarah. What you're screen sharing is FCC draft bylaws, frequently asked questions.
So it's not showing. It's not
Long
showing.
document.
It's not showing the Turnagain Community Council resolution, which is what I have up right now.
Oh,
Not yet.
that's
Not
not
yet?
what I'm seeing. Maybe my Zoom is
Okay.
different than everybody else's.
Okay, I'll try again. So keep talking.
So you had a different you have a different file on you need to change.
Yep. So let's see if I can find it here. How about that?
And it's not started yet.
There you go.
Okay.
It's hard to read, but does anybody want to waive the whereas reading, or would somebody like to have it read?
Please waive it.
Yeah, just give us a moment. Thank you.
Okay. The request is to read it.
Okay. You want me to go ahead?
So,
and read it?
Marnie, would you like to, or would you like me to?
Go ahead, Kathy.
Okay, well, this is Turnagain Community Council resolution. Comments on draft 2026 recreational trails plan regarding Westchester Lagoon Trails safety improvements. Whereas the Turnagain Community Council is an all-volunteer, self-governing neighborhood organization recognized in the Municipality of Anchorage Charter, and whereas the purpose of community councils is to provide a direct and continuing means of citizens' participation in government and local affairs, and whereas the Anchorage Metropolitan Area Transportation Solutions, AMATS, and the Municipality of Anchorage Parks and Recreation Department, Parks, updated the 1997 area-wide trails plan to reflect modern trail needs of Anchorage, Eagle River, and Chugach residents and plan for the years ahead, as well as provide guidance for the management, maintenance, and development of trails. And whereas a draft 2026 recreational trails plan to update the 1997 trails plan is now out for public review and comment and will serve as the local government's new guide for the management, maintenance, and development of trails in the Anchorage, Eagle River, and Chugach areas. And whereas the draft 2026 recreational trails plan vision is to achieve a safe, seamless, adaptable network of outstanding trails for residents and visitors of all ages and abilities that support community wellness, celebrate culture, connect people to nature, and enhance quality of life. And whereas public comment on the 2026 draft recreational trails plan is being accepted until March 31st, 2026, And whereas in October 2025, the 3 community councils of Turnagain Community Council, North Star Community Council, and South Addition Community Council, representing the neighborhoods in direct proximity to the Westchester Lagoon, joined to submit a request to AMATS to consider trail safety enhancements on the trail system that would address growing trail use in this area by residents and visitors alike. And I see there should be a period behind there, so I'll make sure that change. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Turnagain Community Council submits the following comments for consideration and inclusion in the 2026 Recreational Trails Plan with regard to the Westchester Lagoon Trail System area. 1, expand the provisions contained in the Anchorage Area Projects Table, ID number 24, Westchester Lagoon Master Plan on page 96, to include trail safety features for the section of trail from Westchester Lagoon west to the Turnagain Mudflats and the Fish Creek Estuary Bridge, east to Hillcrest Hill and to the Chester Creek Trail, and north to downtown Anchorage. See attached Exhibit A with trails highlighted in yellow. This is roughly a 10-minute walk in each of the 3 trail directions from the existing Westchester Lagoon playground and represents the area of highest congestion by multiple user groups year-round. 2, change the project designation in the Anchorage Area Projects Table, ID number 24, Westchester Lagoon Master Plan, page 96, from its current priority designation of medium to high and designation of time frame from medium to short. 3, consider trail improvements in this area be designed to the new Class A multi-use trail classification, page 84, if/where conditions may allow and are compatible with adjacent land water elements along the trails in this area. The current paved trails are plus or minus 9 feet wide and have a gravel shoulder of about 1 to 2 feet in width on both sides. The trail bridges and Alaska Railroad tunnels are 12 feet wide. TCC requests that the area's trails be widened to 12 feet as well. No additional improvement is envisioned for the bridges and trail tunnels. And 4, rehabilitate the trails in this area to include resurfacing the trail's gravel shoulders on both sides of the trail and excavate and rebuild those portions of the trail that are disturbed by tree root incursion and subsidence. 5, install appropriately scaled lighting on the west and north portion of the trail in this area. Resolution passed, etc. So, do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
I just wanted to add a friendly.
Let's go ahead and have a motion to approve, and then we can discuss, Amanda. So, Steve.
I'll move to approve.
Second. Dan.
Karen, was that you?
Yeah, Karen.
It was.
Thank you. And second was?
Dan.
Dan, okay.
Dan Gleason.
Okay, Amanda, you had something you wanted to share?
Yes, just I know it's implied in the whole project, but I think it was page, I think it is about the 4th one, if we go, where it talks about all those benefits that the trails are for us as people. So it says, let's see here. Okay, the 1, 2, 3, 4th one, the last sentence, that support community wellness, celebrate culture, connect people to nature, and enhance quality of life. So under that, if we could just do, wow, he gets so excited about Turnagain Community Council meetings, guys. So connect people to nature. So something like nature's beauty. So nature has, right, why are people needing to be in nature? Because it actually provides that basis for health. Like people are healthier when they're in nature. So I'm trying to think of something. We have the community wellness aspect, but I'd like to see beauty close added to nature, and then something about maybe the wellness going closer to nature too.
Does anybody want to try and come up with specific language as an amendment?
A simple one could be connect people to nature's beauty.
That's nice.
Okay.
Would you, would that
Is
be a
that
friendly amendment?
Yeah.
Would you be okay to that, Marnie?
I am. I took this language directly from Trail's plan, which is their vision, but there's nothing that stops us. I mean, this is a public process, so I think that's a nice addition. No objection.
Okay. And then continuing on that, and Amanda, you feel like and enhance quality of life doesn't quite capture health and well-being?
It's okay. Yeah. If I had more time to think about it, I think I could summarize it better, but I think it captures it overall. So just adding the beauty aspect, because we all know that the parts on the trail that are, I'm so sorry, the parts on the trail that are like stinky parts, right? Might be part of nature, but not necessarily beautiful. So
Amanda, this is Marnie. So could you read starting from the whereas with your addition?
yeah, let me get away from. Okay, so visitors of all ages and abilities that support community wellness, celebrate culture, connect people to nature's beauty, and enhance quality of life.
Okay, nature's beauty.
Okay. So does anybody have any objection to that amendment? Is anybody raising their hand? I don't hear anything, so that amendment is accepted with no objection. Thank you, Amanda. Does anybody else have any comments or any proposed amendments on this Turnagain Community Council resolution? I'm not hearing anything, so if not, then could I have a motion to move as amended?
So moved.
Okay, John, thank you.
Second, this is Kathleen Belosky.
Thank you, Kathleen. Okay, let's go ahead on a formal resolution. We typically raise our hands for yes and no and any abstentions. So as I cannot see people, I'm going to rely on other folks to count. Raise your hand if you support this resolution. Who's counting for us today? Dan, can you count hands?
Yeah. 1,
Okay.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 so far.
So far?
12. Yeah.
Okay.
13. Well, 12. Yeah, it's unanimous.
Okay, 12 yeses. Any noes? So 0 noes? Is there anyone that is abstaining? Sounds like 0. Okay, 12-0. This motion passes. And this
Amanda,
amendment
did
is-
you
sorry.
Did you lower your hand? No, okay.
Apologies. Thank you. I was voting in affirmation.
Okay, so we've got 12 yeses and nothing else. So thank you so much, Marnie. Thank you for all your work on this. We really appreciate you dogging this thing. And we'll get those changes made and sent to Marnie. Do you want to be the one to go ahead and provide it officially to or I can. That's fine.
No, I'd be glad to do it if you want to retype the resolution and then sign it, and I can pick it up. So I may bundle them all together if it's okay with the other councils as hard copy.
So you'll send it to the Parks and to South Edition and North Star.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, next item on the agenda also has to deal with the 2026 draft regional trails plan. And let's see, let me type that in there. And this is for the rest of the trails plan. That there's also things that need to be probably commented on this plan. And when I attended and Marnie and husband Dan attended as well, the open house, that was an opportunity to kind of look what was being proposed, and you could put post-it notes. And I included some comments, post-it note comments reflective of where Turnagain Community Council has been on in the past on some of the items, or some questions or concerns with regard to how wide the coastal trail might be, if it's improved, beyond the Fish Creek estuary going west, because it's just an easement on private property, and the coast comes up pretty close, and there are erosion problems. So just things to add into our overall comments with regard to those suggestions. One of the things in the trails plan recommends a separate single track where you've got bikers that go really fast, paralleling the coastal trail on the west side from Kincaid up to I think Point Warrenzoff Park or Overlook. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at that again. Maybe question if that is really appropriate in that area. And so we want to form a committee to go ahead and review the rest of the plan and submit input. And then that would have to be ratified at our April 2nd meeting. Line for comments is March 31st. So based on that, does anybody have any thoughts, questions, concerns, input? And we would form an ad hoc committee to officially do that analysis.
Yeah, I think for just my thoughts and my demographic, that there are a lot of younger families who are trail users who might not, because of time constraints and dogs barking and kids, right, who need bedtime, so that they might not be part of this monthly meeting, but would have input. So I would be interested in how we can get the word out to the larger community that this comment period is open, whether or not, right, those individuals would want to be part of such a committee. But I'm just thinking along those lines, because really the trails, those people using those trails, right, there's a large portion of people in Turnagain using those trails who might not know that this is how they give input.
I would say that I could have FCC send out a notice about the plan and a link to it to everybody on our email list. I know that doesn't capture nearly all of our Turnagain residents and neighbors, but from a TCC standpoint, that's probably about the best we could do. I know that the sponsors of this have been doing publicity and outreach as well, but I can't give you any specifics. But at least I could ask FCC to send out an email specifically about this plan.
Yeah, that could help in part. I'm sensing mostly it's a social media output. So, or even just through posting, making sure the churches, the schools, like it's that kind of, back in the old days where it was more posters on bulletin boards and things, like how can we do that for the still in the community? I'm interested in brainstorming that.
Well, yeah, and certainly anybody is welcome to share, the information, contact information, how you get the document, how you review it, when the deadline is. Share it on social media, absolutely.
Kathy, it's Marnie. Do you think you can pull all that together and get comments organized by the 31st?
Well, it depends how many want to serve on this ad hoc committee, and then we'll just schedule a time to meet and go through it.
They may be fairly strict about that deadline so that they don't lose control.
Well, I guess the question would be, does anybody want to serve on a TCC ad hoc committee to review the rest of the plan outside of what we just passed a resolution on and provide input that it would come from the board then to submit?
Kathy,
I'd be pleased to be on it this morning.
Kathy, this is Sarah. I'm a single track user, so it might be good to have a mountain biker on.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd be happy to look through that section.
Yeah. Basically, that's an area that doesn't get nearly as much high traffic as, say, Westchester Lagoon area.
Right.
And so I chatted with the planners there at that open house about that and pointed that out. And also, that's a really high wildlife
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
migrating corridor.
Yeah.
And so with bikers zipping by and also the quality of the coastal trail user in that area, it has to be taken into consideration, and how much vegetation would be removed by building other trails. So those are the kind of things that,
That was my first thought too. Yeah. I'm interested and a little surprised, but the folks who do single track in the town, they're very active and they've been wanting to expand in pretty much every park they can. So there's definitely a group of us who maybe think we've got enough. But there's a group that always wants more. So I'd be happy to look at that from a user standpoint.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I've got Marnie and Sarah, and I will serve on that committee. Is there anybody else that would like to join us in putting together comments, review and comments for the board to submit? I can't see, so I don't know if anybody else wants to join in. No one else raising their hand? Okay, then it's the three of us. Okay. And then we would ratify this at our April 2nd meeting. Okay, next item on the agenda is creating an ad hoc committee to look at draft 2 of the Federation of Community Councils bylaws. And John, I'm going to let you take the lead on this one.
Okay, mic is on. So as Kathy has indicated, the FCC has been working on changing their bylaws. I think they established something back in March of 2025 to start looking at bylaws, and I've been going through a couple of drafts. They currently have a second draft out. And there's been a lot of public comment on the bylaws. There's been some concerns expressed about the bylaws. I know I've looked at version 2 with the track changes and have some questions. And so we thought it would be good to see who would be interested in being on a committee to take a look at the draft bylaws and come up with some questions and comments that we would want to submit on behalf of Turnagain. Now, I know the next FCC meeting is on March 18th, Kathy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's correct.
And do we need to try to come up with comments before that, or they'll probably be thinking about it for a while and we have time to come up with some comments and run it past the council in April? What are your thoughts?
Well, the status is that we're supposed to come back, delegates are supposed to come back to this our meeting on the 18th with any kind of input from our councils. Okay. And from the delegates themselves. And so I can pretty much guarantee that we won't be voting on anything at that meeting, and probably will consider April. But on the other hand, that may not be set in stone, because if there's not that much more input submitted by delegates, then the bylaws committee and the FCC delegation board, officers may feel like we might be ready to vote. So I can't say for sure one way or the other, but I would certainly think that it would behoove us to submit anything else that we may be thinking about with regard to these bylaw changes sooner rather than later, and probably they would be discussed. It would be best for them to be discussed at our upcoming meeting this March.
Okay, so I know Amanda's interested in being on the committee. If anybody else is interested, we could try to meet this weekend. And I can provide some guidance on where to look at things. I'm going to put my email in the chat just to make sure everyone has it. Is anyone else on the meeting right now interested in being on a committee to look at the FCC bylaws besides Amanda and myself?
Well, certainly
Hi,
I would be
John.
part of that as well. Sorry,
Karen, is
did
that
I hear
you?
somebody else say something?
I would like to
Karen.
get a chance to review, but I'm sure the board will before the next full meeting. So that's all. I won't be able to join you this weekend, but thank you guys for your work.
Karen, do you have any specific input that you could provide the committee?
Nothing that's popping to mind real quick.
Since you've been, zooming in on a lot of our meetings when we've discussed these, or would you, if you want to be part of this, could
for
you?
FCC, yes, I do. I would like to note that I'm not personally very worried about FCC's ability to require anything out of the individual community councils. I do understand, for practicality's sake and for even board insurance's sake, why they want fewer people on the board. But I do think it's worth looking at those changes with an eye for how the existing community councils will provide input and guide share their desires with the full board. Like, will there be an annual forum, or what are the mechanisms? And I think that's worth looking at. But overall, I think it's important updates for the function of the FCC and to align with their requirements for, fiduciary duties and such. So I'm not too worried about it.
I think Karen brings up some good comments about how the delegates influence the board and kind of the chain of command, that we can take a look at those. Kind of in the order of time, is there anybody else who wants to be on the committee besides Amanda and myself?
My
I'll be serving on it too, John.
You want to be on it too, Kathy? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I really need to be, since
Got
I'm
it.
the one that would be submitting this. And Karen, if this weekend isn't good for you, but early next week, I mean, is that why you wouldn't participate? Is just you can't meet this weekend?
Yeah, we're going out of town on vacation for spring break. So I will be happy to read an email next week on your guys' comments and recommendations. And I think that's plenty for me. So thank you very much for your extra work on this, guys.
Okay, so we'll coordinate and send you comments. Kathy and Amanda and I will coordinate by email to try to meet this weekend. I put my email in the chat. I think you also ought to take a look at the FCC website. They have the FIQs there. They also have comments they received to date, which are worth reading. And then if you search the site under the topic of bylaws, there's a lot of other documents that are helpful. So I may try to pull down some of those and send those to everybody. So I think we're set and we're kind of done with that item.
Okay, thank you so much. And we'll see what we can come up with review. There's been a lot of good input from delegates so far when we've met at our, at our regular meetings. And so there's a variety of input and feelings about this for sure. Okay, so we are down to land use committee. And John, again, I'll let you take the lead on that, and we'll jump in where necessary.
Okay, so based on the meeting we had, it was actually Tuesday, not Monday, on the aesthetics, they indicated that they pretty much have the enrollment without changes, and that at a 70% design and want to head to a 90% design later this year. They've updated the graphics on the websites in November, so they have kind of the new alignments and things like that. I think our biggest areas of interest right now should be looking at how the trail is laid out for aesthetics, looking at potential impacts on setting and environment, and then the one that's still fairly controversial, having to do with the coastal trail extension and build out on scroll 3. And that was something that White Keys and Audubon are still very, very concerned about. They would like to sit down and talk about that. So I do think that we want to try to get a meeting here with White Keys very soon and Audubon to see what their concerns are, and then pull in the project team to say, let's look at the layout, let's see how you're designing that in terms of what you have in the way of fences to control access, what you're doing with retaining walls, what you're doing with other things to try to minimize some of our concerns. They did say they've reduced the number of retaining walls, and most of them will not be visible from the trail, with the exception of the big long one along Resolution Drive, and also the one that's by the S-curve coming down uh, into the coastal trail. The design of the one along Resolution Drive is going to be vertical. They're going to try not to cut back into the slope. They're going to have a fence on top of that that protects the yards and also protects anyone from looking into those yards. So I think they're making some efforts. That's kind of a suggestion. I know that Kathleen Belosky reached out to Mr. White Keys last time, and we were not able to follow up on that. And certainly I can try to get a hold of him and set something up where we can talk about their concerns. But I think we'll want to focus our questions and efforts with the project team to how they design and build the trail within the existing alignment and what they do with particularly the coastal trail bump out piece. So that's my 2 cents.
John?
Well, thank you, John. Now, so you're envisioning another land use committee meeting on this in the near future?
I think that we can have a land use committee meeting and try to meet with Audubon. I don't know the Great Land Trust. We'll see if they have any additional concerns. I think we would need to do that very quickly, maybe next week. And then I think we would need to get back to the project team this month. I take responsibility for dropping the ball and following up on some of this.
I think we all fall into that category, but it's a lot to digest, and there was a lot to consider. So thank you, John. I appreciate it. And then the last item under Land Use Committee report is the TISDO Transit Supportive Development Overlay Project update. We did get a fact sheet, or no, excuse me, John, you put together a fact sheet. And let's see, what else do I want to mention there? And then we also got this tri-fold. Well, why don't you just fill us in on the different group or groups that are kind of talking about this, gathering, producing, sending out things. If you can kind of summarize what's been happening.
So, there's a group that's been meeting that includes residents of Rogers Park, of North Star. I've been part of it, Sandy's been part of it, and they're kind of looking at trying to come up with an alternative to TISDO. One of the reasons things have accelerated is this group in this meeting that includes these other community councils have been inviting assembly candidates to come to the meeting and talk about TISDO. And they've invited Anna and Brian Flynn. They've invited Sydney Scout, and I think, can't remember the gentleman's name who's opposing her, and then Dave Donnelly and Janice Parks from the Rogers Park area. And part of the issue here is to try to get in front of these assembly candidates, get their position on TISDO and see if we can find out where they stand on it so we can inform voters how you might wish to vote. There's been some interest in putting out a new fact sheet based on version 6, which was passed in October of last year. And so what was attached to today's agenda was my attempt to do a fairly neutral version of the fact sheet that we put out last September. The trifold that has been put out by the We Love Anchorage group, I would say, is a little bit less neutral, but it does come up with a lot of ideas and suggestions, and we can perhaps find a way to get that distributed to the on our mailing list with the next thing we send out. One of the reasons this is accelerated is that we had seen a assembly work session scheduled for last Friday by Aaron Baldwin Day on TISDA, which usually means they're about ready to introduce it to the assembly for consideration. That got canceled. She's talked about scheduling one for the 6th or the 13th, but it still has not happened yet. She also talked about having 5 public meetings during the month of March to talk about housing, but not TISDO, and we've seen nothing more about that. There's been no new news out of the mayor's office about the pause and their interest in holding public meetings, but we were concerned enough that were this to be introduced to the assembly, we would have to move fairly quickly and try to engender some support for pausing TISDO and let's take an intelligent look at housing. So that is kind of the status. I would say that anybody who's on this call who's interested in that, I would, write our assembly candidates, which are Anna and Brian Flynn, and ask them for their position on TISDO. And stay tuned for further developments. If there's any information on public meetings, I will try to find out those and pass it on to the group so that people can attend, listen, and have your input regardless of where you stand on the issue. I think most people really support the idea of how can we jumpstart more housing, but we find some of the things that are in version 6, which are no minimum lot size, much greater lot coverage, you have no on-site parking, things that could really harm some of the single 2-family neighborhoods if they're not done carefully. So I think that's kind of a quick update. If things happen, Kathy, can we pretty much rely on FCC to get some information out to our mailing list fairly quickly so people are updated on what's going on?
I'm not sure about that. I don't think that they're the ones that really put out notices when public hearings are going to be held or assembly work sessions. That's not really that kind of stuff that they disseminate per se.
If we had something that came from the council, that would be agenda-like, but we wanted to get it out before the next meeting. We wouldn't actually have them put something out, but if we wanted to send something like a newsletter to our membership saying this is what's happening with TISDO, do you think they would do that?
Oh yeah. That if we request them sending something out, that that's not a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought you meant that they would put something together. No, we could, just like, we'll do that for what we had discussed previously. So,
and I would say if anybody has any other questions on TISDO, I've put my email in the chat, so feel free to contact me. But I think we need to be prepared for this going in front of the assembly. I don't think it's going to happen before the election, but this is an opportunity to try to get the word out to friends and neighbors, just so people are informed and can decide to weigh in as they wish.
Yeah. I know that the pause was kind of indefinite, but not, and so now months have passed and I can see it just popping up fairly quickly without a lot of time for those of us who are following this to kind of react and provide input. Especially if these public, I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be public meetings and they would all be this month yet. That just doesn't.
That's what Erin Baldwin Day has said. And her public meetings have really not been opportunities for dialogue. They've been opportunities for her to extol on how great TISDO is and to kind of ask for opinions and ideas, which, tend to support, her passion in providing more housing, which nobody refutes. It's just kind of a matter of how you do it without harming neighborhoods.
Yeah. Okay, well, so John, do you see the land use committee needing to schedule a meeting?
If I hear that something's coming up, I would say yes.
Okay.
But I think if we get some information, we'll send out a newsletter, we'll send out the trifold we just got as pieces of information to our mailing list, and that might be the way to go. And I notice we're 1 minute away from 9 o'clock, so I don't know if we need to extend for 5 minutes or we can pretty close to wrapping up.
Thank you, John. Well, does anybody want to share anything where we need to extend for 5 minutes
I have questions.
or have questions for John on this topic? And we can certainly, I'd entertain a motion to extend if needed.
Move to extend for 5 minutes.
Okay. Can I have a second?
A second. Okay.
Amanda, was that you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Okay, is there any objection to extending to 9:05? I'm gonna assume no, I can't see you, but okay, so yeah, just enough breathing room to if anybody has any other thoughts at this point on this proposal. And thanks, John, again for putting together that fact sheet and kind of letting us know where we're at now. So
Yeah,
yeah.
Kathy.
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess my concern is really as, a child of the pipeline days and when there was so much fast, ugly structures put up in Anchorage. And then I felt like we had a period where we kind of corrected that. And I'm fearing that this next cycle of doing rushed housing, because I'm already seeing like the trees in front of developments just being clear cut, no attention to landscaping or how the facades really add to people's sense of living in a beautiful community. I'm really concerned about that. So as I see this, I don't, without those kind of aesthetic requirements or just what does it mean to live in a good urban city, because this is really going to impact our generation. So it's really important, I feel.
Very, very, very good thoughts. And the other thing that we just cannot forget to keep mentioning is the Assembly has already passed code that does not require on-site parking for multi-use housing anymore. That's already in stone, and layering that on top of the concerns that you expressed, Amanda, and others, it's something that the community needs to continue to follow and weigh in on. Anybody else have any thoughts on this or anything else with regard to TCC before we adjourn? I'm not sure who else. So we still have 12 participants. I apologize that I can't see you. So anybody else have anything they want to share? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you, John. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sarah. Is there any objection for TCC March 5th, 2026 meeting to adjourn? Okay. We are adjourned. Thank you so much, everybody, for your participation and input and activism on all things Turnagain Community Council related.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. Thanks for all your work.
Yep.
Good night.
Thanks
Good
all.
night.
Night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you, Dan, for hosting.
Thanks, Dan.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, have a good evening and enjoy. Stay warm.
Everybody's off but you
Oh.
and me.
Okay, let me quit. Get out of here. Leave meeting.